Hello everyone, welcome to Best Recipes with Sharon. Today we're going to be making this fancy apple cinnamon biscuit cookies. The delicious apple filling is encased in a sweet dough. And it only takes 2 apples and 1 egg. And all simple ingredients that you should have around the house. Start by preheating the oven to 360 degrees Fahrenheit. Then you take 2 apples and you peel them and you core them. And you cut them into pieces, and then you shred them. And place your shredded apples in a medium-sized frying pan and put it on the stove over medium heat. Then add 2 tablespoons of sugar. And sprinkle a little cinnamon over the top. And stir that in until it's well combined. Now then add 1 tablespoon of butter. And also 1 tablespoon of honey. Stir that in and then continue cooking it over medium heat. And I stir it around a little bit while it's cooking and only cook it until the apples start to turn tender. And because the apples are shredded, it'll only take maybe about 5 minutes. And as it's cooking, it'll produce its own juices. So I use a teaspoon of flour just to thicken it up a little bit. And like you see here, I just sprinkle it on top of the hot apples and stir it in. And now that the filling has thickened up properly, just set it aside to cool down a little bit. Now on to making the biscuit dough. Add 1/4 cup of white sugar to the mixing bowl. Next add about 2 tablespoons of milk. And now add 1 large egg. And sprinkle in a pinch of salt. And whisk this all together. Add a teaspoon of baking powder and whisk that in. And now we're adding 1/4 cup of melted butter. Mix that together and then add in some all-purpose flour. Start with 1 cup and you may need to add another 1/4 cup. So use a large spoon and start adding your flour and mix it until it forms a soft dough. And gradually add the flour, a little bit at a time. And it makes it easier to mix your dough, but it also makes sure that you don't add too much flour. And here I've mixed it with just the 1 cup of flour in it, and it needs another 1/4 cup of flour. So I've added that and continue to mix it until it forms a nice soft dough. And you'll see what the texture should be like when this is mixed together. So there it's formed a nice soft dough and it's ready to use. Shape your dough into a ball and cut it into equal halves. And each piece of dough will be rolled out separately. And work it with your hands a little bit to shape it. Each piece of dough will need to be shaped into a circle. And then I use a rolling pin and roll it out into a larger circle and roll it till it's about maybe 1/4 inch thick. And only dust it lightly with flour, just enough to keep it from sticking to your rolling pin. Now use a pizza cutter to cut it into 8 pieces. Then make 3 slits in each of the triangles. Use a spoonful of the apple filling and place it on the upper end of the triangle. And do this for each of them. And the amount should work out to be in about 16 of these when it's done, because you'll have 2 circles that are 8 each. Now roll them starting with the wide end and into the middle. And then take them and pull them slightly apart so that the slits will show. And I twist the ends in just a little bit. I'm doing this whole thing on parchment paper because it's much easier to work with and to remove them off of the parchment paper, and then I place them on parchment paper again on top of the cookie sheet. And just continue doing this until you have them all done and on the cookie sheet, and there should be a total of 16. This is quite easy to do. Place them in your preheated 360 degree Fahrenheit oven. Place them on the middle rack and time it for about 15 minutes. It will take anywhere between 15 and 18 minutes. The bottom will brown up faster than the top, so keep an eye on them. Now they're fresh from the oven, nice and hot, and I sprinkle them with some fresh icing sugar, and they're ready to serve. And they're excellent fresh out of the oven while they're still hot. because it's like eating a fresh hot apple pie cookie. And the biscuit is a little bit crisp when it's first out of the oven, which is what gives it a little bit of a biscuit or cookie type texture. And if they last long enough to cool off, it will soften up a little bit, and it'll be a little bit more like a mini pie. And I hope you'll enjoy this sweet little treat, and you might have to go make some. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.